All right, as you can see, the full self-driving autopilot struggle to get through that new lane created by the road worker, construction worker, because they were doing some maintenance on the right side of the road. So we tried this a few times, actually 5 times in total. Each time it did not go past the first few cones before it freaks out. And I think because it's also on a hill, a slope, it's a right turn, it just got confused. If I let it go, it probably would have hit one of the cone, potentially a construction worker. So in order to be safe, this is when I took over right there, when that guy in the construction shirt held up the sign to slow down. It went straight right towards that cone. So I had to take over several times. However, what full self-driving and autopilot does well is on the highway. And it's been doing well ever since its inception of the enhanced autopilot a few years back. So enhanced autopilot on the highway has been almost perfected. So switching lanes, interchange between different highways, it has no problems doing that. If anything, it did that a lot better before Tesla Vision. But even with Tesla Vision and no radar, I think it still does a great job in terms of staying within the lane. Occasionally, when there is a curvy road, it does not transition quick enough. So it does ride on the lanes if it's a sharp corner when you're going at max speed, which is 85 miles per hour. So full self-driving autopilots, enhanced autopilot allows you to go to 85 miles per hour. Now, we had enhanced autopilot before in older Tesla that didn't rely on Tesla Vision at the time. So it had the sonar, the radar, the ultra sensor, and also the camera. It was able to go up to 90 miles per hour. Then at one point, a year and a half ago, Tesla lowered the speed to 80. And people complain that some highway is too slow. Some highway, the speed limit is actually 80 miles per hour. So if you're not familiar with the States, you can travel between 5 to 10 miles above the speed limit without getting into trouble. The moment you go above 15 miles per hour, that's when you have a higher risk of getting pulled over by the CHP, by a police officer. So with 85, that should be the soft spot. Even 85 is fairly fast for most highway. And right now we're cruising at around 60, 65. We set it at 70 usually, 75. And it does really well, even with vehicles merging from the on-ramp, changing to different intersection through the interchange, switching freeways. It does that really well. And you can set this so that it automatically does it without your confirmation on the stock. Right now, we set it as confirmation required. So that means you have to hit the signal on the left column, or if you're on the refresh Model S and X, you hit that on the steering wheel. Then it will switch lane. As for switching onto the different highway, if you're in the correct lane, which it will try to put you in there about 2 to 3 miles before, which I think is okay if there's not a lot of traffic. Occasionally, I would ignore those lane change requests and wait until the last mile before the highway interchange and switch. Because if you do it too soon, you end up being behind a lot of slower vehicles. And if you're one of those drivers that don't like to go faster than other vehicle, then that might work out for you well. However, we usually like to be on the quickest lane and switch over when we need to switch highway about 2 to 1 miles away from that new highway. Right now, we're just cruising. And if we actually set this to be able to actually change lane on its own, all you need to do is place your hand on the steering wheel and provide a little weight on the right or left side. Then it automatically will change lane for you. There's no warning, no alert. It just changed lane for you after it signal for a few seconds, assuming there's no vehicle. So if you're not paying attention, it could be a shocker and surprise, especially when you're driving. By default, Tesla turned that feature off, so you actually have to manually turn that automatic lane change on yourself under autopilot setting. As you can see here, we're on full autopilot, enhanced autopilot, full self-driving. It switches between enhanced autopilot on the highway and full self-driving once it exit the highway and go into the city street. Usually during the transition, there is some quirkiness to that. Occasionally, it freaks out during the transition between full self-driving and then city street to highway full self-driving enhanced autopilot. Basically, on highway is enhanced autopilot. There is really no full self-driving component that is different with the enhanced autopilot. I know in the future, they will probably not require you to put your hand on the steering wheel as much. And we notice that if you're on the full self-driving versus autopilot, it doesn't alert you to place your hand on the steering wheel as frequent as if you were just to have the basic autopilot or even enhanced autopilot. I know that the inner camera behind the front cameras, the 3 front cameras above your rear view mirror, there is a camera that is watching you. So as long as you're looking straight, it does not alert you to place your hand on the steering wheel. So I think Tesla is testing that out. The moment you are looking at your phone, looking down, looking to the left or the right, it alerts you to place your hand back on the steering wheel. So it is recognizing whether you're paying attention or not while you're driving. So Tesla claimed that they don't use that data, is confidential, so they don't share that with anyone else. When you sign up for FSD beta, you have to consent for them to turn on the camera inside the cabin. With that said, you just want to be careful, because if you don't pay attention or you're goofing around, you're trying to do some funny videos or short videos, just make sure that you're doing it safely. So Tesla do have access to that, and if they do see that you're not paying attention, they can certainly claim that because of you and not full self-driving if an incident does occur. So as we're cruising on the highway here, again, I'm not placing my hand on the steering wheel much at all. It doesn't even alert me. And if you are traveling below 80 miles per hour, it usually leaves you alone, and it doesn't ping you with alerts of please place your hand on the steering wheel. Even if you don't place your hand on the steering wheel and you scroll between the square wheel, whether that's music, the distance, or how fast and slow you're going, even turning on the signal, it reminds the vehicle that you're paying attention. So for them to say you have to place your hand on the steering wheel 100% of the time, it's not true. You can actually get away with it for a few minutes at a time. And right now we're cruising at 85, 84, 85. This is the max speed that full self-driving enhanced autopilot will let you go up to. If you have the basic autopilot, you only can go up to 80. And I'm not sure why. They may have changed that recently, but my understanding from the last time I checked is 80 is the max with autopilot base. And if you have enhanced or full self-driving, you can go up to 85. And even the 85 feels really fast. And now we're going to start changing lane over. As you can see that it does that. very smoothly. The thing is, you have to be careful when the adjacent lane, making sure that that vehicle is not changing in the same lane that you want to change lane into. So it does well with vehicle in front, behind. If there's a speeding vehicle coming up on your adjacent lane, it does not know the velocity of that vehicle, and usually it will just change lane and cut that vehicle off. So definitely pay attention when it is changing lane, that you're not cutting anyone off, or there's not a speeding car that's coming up on you, especially if you're going slower than 85 miles per hour. On the soft spot, 78 to 85, you should be at the lead of the pack most of the time and passing other vehicle. And it does recognize motorcycle, smaller vehicles, larger vehicle. The thing it does strangely with big rigs is that it tends to move away from the big rig slightly, so you end up being closer to the other lane, and there's a higher chance that you may collide with the other vehicle if they drift over to your lane, for example. So something to keep in mind. But for changing lane on the highway, it does this very well. There's no issues. We haven't had any concerns about it. Occasionally at nighttime, it does freak out if there's a vehicle with bright lights on the adjacent lane. It thinks that is in the blind spot. So again, I'm confirming all the lane change by just hitting the stop column to signal to that lane, and it would change over for you. So it works really well on the highway, and usually this is where most people use it. I did try using it at City Street. I'm getting more comfortable with it, except for the construction zone area. That Tesla needs to work out. But if there's no construction zone and it's just very grid-like type of city, not a lot of weird turns or curve, it does really well with left turns into another intersection. So right turn is when it struggles the most. And I'm not sure why. Maybe it's the steep of the turn or what. But left turn, it does it almost perfectly, going straight, going down the lane, switching lane in City Street. It does that really well. It's just the right turn. Sometimes it gets too close to the curve for comfort, and potentially you can scrub your wheels on the curve. And of course, Tesla will not be liable for that because you consented to being part of the beta. So now we're exiting the highway, and it does really well exiting highway as well. It does not panic or freaks out in any way. But that's our first experience, and we'll continue to test this out. Right now, we're on 32.1, and we'll be testing more and more of the city street driving, and we'll see how it handles. So thanks for watching. Remember to subscribe, and catch you on next time.